The relentless heat of Vexar 9 twin suns scorched the central bazaar, turning the air into a shimmering haze thick with the acrid scent of molten ore, volcanic ash, and the sharp tang of molten metal from overworked forges. The colony, carved into the side of a massive, dormant volcano that still rumbled ominously beneath the ground, was a patchwork of survivalist ingenuity. Ramshackle stalls fashioned from rusted starship hulls and reinforced with scavenged durasteel beams lined the uneven, cracked streets. Miners, their faces etched with lines of exhaustion and coated in a perpetual layer of grime, bartered fiercely for essential supplies. Ration packs that tasted like recycled cardboard, tools worn down from endless use, and the occasional luxury like a bottle of synthetic ale that promised a brief escape from the drudgery. Traders from distant worlds hawked their wares with booming voices, their eyes sharp as plasma torches, always ready to exploit the desperation of those who toiled in the depths of the planet's treacherous caves. Distant drilling rigs hummed and groaned, their vibrations sending small tremors through the ground, a constant reminder that Vexar 9 was as unforgiving as it was resource-rich, yielding rare minerals and exotic flora that fetched high prices on the galactic black markets. But on this sweltering afternoon, the bazaar's usual rhythm of haggling and commerce had twisted into something darker, more primal, a spectacle of public humiliation that drew a growing crowd like moths to a plasma flame. Whispers spread through the throng, pulling in off-duty miners, curious vendors, and even a few wide-eyed newcomers who had just disembarked from the latest supply shuttle. The air buzzed with anticipation, laced with the cruel undercurrent of mob mentality, as people jostled for better views, their faces a mix of morbid fascination and detached amusement. In the center of it all, stumbling forward on unsteady legs, was Kalia Vren, a once respected archaeobotanist from the verdant paradise world of Silvaris. Her sapphire-blue skin, normally vibrant and iridescent under natural light, was now dulled by a film of dust, sweat, and the purplish bruises that bloomed across her arms and torso like invasive weeds. Her jet-black hair, which she typically wove into intricate braids adorned with bioluminescent beads symbolizing her clan's ancient lineage of scholars, hung in wild matted clumps, sticking to her sweat-slicked face and offering scant protection from the leering stares that pierced her like needles. Stripped bare by the colony's enforcers in a calculated act of degradation, Kalia clutched her arms across her chest, her slender, athletic frame, honed from years of fieldwork in treacherous terrains, trembling not just from the physical exposure but from the soul-crushing weight of the humiliation. Each step on the rough, ash-strewn ground sent jolts of pain through her bare feet scraped raw by the jagged volcanic rock. The crowd's jeers rose in a cacophonous wave, insults hurled like weapons. Saboteur. Off-world filth, blue-skinned spy. Rotten synth fruits, engineered to last in harsh environments but now overripe and foul, splattered against her skin, their sticky juices mixing with the mining slag chunks of discarded ore and debris that pelted her relentlessly. Each impact felt like a fresh wound, not just to her body but to her spirit, eroding the confidence of a woman who had dedicated her life to unraveling the mysteries of alien ecosystems. Overseeing this orchestrated torment from a raised platform at the bazaar's edge was Torin Scal, the colony's iron-fisted logistics chief, a man whose reputation for ruthlessness was as solid as the durasteel he traded. His gaunt, ash-gray face, marked by a jagged scar that ran from his temple to his cheek like a fault line in cracked earth, twisted into a cold, satisfied grin. Tall and wiry, with limbs that seemed too long for his frame, Torin was clad in a reinforced exosuit that amplified his presence, its plates etched with the insignia of the colony's corporate overlords. He had built his power on fear and favors, controlling the flow of supplies and information with an iron grip. Kalia had been a threat to that empire. During her research into Vexar 9 volcanic caves, she had stumbled upon his secret operation, a black market trade in rare bioluminescent flora, plants that glowed with an otherworldly light and possessed properties that could revolutionize medicine or, in the wrong hands, be weaponized into devastating biotoxins. These specimens, harvested illegally from protected zones, were sold to shadowy off-world collectors for fortunes and credits, lining Torin's pockets while endangering the fragile balance of the planet's ecosystem. Framing Kalia as a corporate spy had been a masterstroke of deception. Falsified logs showing her transmitting data to rival firms, whispered rumors among the miners about her suspicious off-hours explorations, and a staged discovery of planted evidence in her quarters. Now this walk of shame, a colonial tradition reserved for the most despised offenders, would discredit her completely, ensuring that any accusations she leveled against him would be dismissed as the ravings of a disgraced alien. Torin crossed his arms, his scar twitching as he watched her progress, savoring the way the crowd fed off her vulnerability. It was a display of power, a warning to anyone else who might dare to dig too deep. "Move it, Blueskin," snarled one of Torin's guards, a burly reptilian enforcer whose scales gleamed like tarnished bronze under the sun's glare. His name was Grak, a loyal brute who had risen through the ranks by cracking skulls and asking no questions. He prodded Kalia forward with the butt of his stun baton, the weapon humming with latent energy that promised agony if she faltered. The crowd's laughter swelled again, a few bolder souls tossing more debris, bits of rusted metal spoiled rations that struck her shoulders and back, leaving welts that burned in the heat. Kalia's amber eyes, usually sharp and analytical, filled with tears that she fought to hold back, her mind racing through memories of her homeworld, the lush, glowing forests of Silvaris where vines twisted into natural cathedrals and knowledge was revered above all. How had she ended up here, reduced to this? Her heart hammered against her ribs, each beat a mix of fear, anger, and a desperate hope that this nightmare would end. Through the swirling haze of tears and ash, Kalia barely registered the commotion until it was upon her, a tall figure shoving through the dense wall of onlookers with purposeful strides. He was a human, rare in these remote colonies where most inhabitants were hardy aliens adapted to harsh environments. Broad-shouldered and wiry, with sun-bleached hair that fell in unkempt waves over a forehead lined from years under alien suns, his piercing green eyes locked onto her with an intensity that cut through the chaos. His skin was tanned and weathered, marked by faint scars from welding burns and close calls in industrial accidents, and he moved with the confident gait of someone who had faced down worse than a jeering mob. Rin Calder had docked on Vexar 9 that morning, his battered freighter loaded with welding gear and plasma cutters for a contract to reinforce the colony's crumbling mining scaffolds, massive structures that held the weight of the volcano's inner chambers but were buckling under years of neglect. A freelance welder by trade, Rin had spent years traveling the galaxy, fusing together the broken bones of starships, mining rigs, and orbital stations, his hands steady even in the most hazardous conditions. He'd seen his share of injustice on fringe worlds, corporate exploitation, pirate raids, and the casual cruelty that flourished in lawless outposts. But this parading a vulnerable woman through a crowd, exposed and pelted with garbage, stirred a deep-seated fury in him, a reminder of the stories his mother told of Earth's labor wars where dignity was the first casualty. Without a second thought, Rin shrugged off his heavy utility coat, a rugged garment woven from thermal-resistant fibers and lined with pockets full of welding tools. It had cost him a month's wages on a core world station, custom-fitted for extreme environments, but in that moment its value paled against the need to act. Enough of this barbarism, he declared, his voice a low rumble that carried over the jeers, laced with an authority born from countless negotiations in hostile territories. The nearest guards hesitated, surprised by the humans' boldness, their grips tightening on their weapons. "Stay out of this, human," hissed Grak, the reptilian guard, his baton crackling with energy as he stepped forward. "This is colony justice." Rin ignored him, focusing instead on Kalia. He draped the coat around her shoulders with gentle precision, ensuring it covered her fully, the warm fabric a stark contrast to the chill of her exposure. It smelled of welding flux leather and the faint, earthy scent of distant worlds, comforting in its humanity. "You're okay now," he whispered, his green eyes meeting her amber ones with unwavering reassurance. "I won't let them hurt you anymore, stay close." The crowd's energy shifted uneasily, some jeers died down, replaced by murmurs of confusion or even reluctant admiration. A few miners, their consciences pricked, began to drift away, suddenly uncomfortable with their role in the spectacle. Torin Scowl's cold grin faltered, his scar pulling tight as he descended from the platform, his exosuit whirring softly with each step. "This alien is a convicted traitor," he bellowed, his voice amplified by a hidden comm unit echoing off the stall walls. "She's been sentenced for sabotaging our operations. Interfering carries severe penalties, fines, imprisonment, or worse." Rin turned to face him, his stance unyielding, one hand resting protectively on Kalia's shoulder. "I'm invoking Galactic Accord Section 12, he countered smoothly, his knowledge of interstellar law surprising even himself. It was something he'd picked up during a stint with a legal aid convoy. "The right to challenge unjust sentencing on humanitarian grounds. As a guild-registered welder with credentials from the Interstellar Engineering Guild, I'm filing for an immediate review. Touch her again, and I'll have Confederacy auditors swarming this rock faster than a plasma torch cuts steel." Torin's eyes narrowed, his mind calculating the risks. Humans were unpredictable variables in colonial politics, tenacious, resourceful, and often backed by powerful guilds that could tie up operations in red tape for months. Rin's mention of the Confederacy, the overarching galactic authority that enforced accords across systems, was a bluff he couldn't immediately call without evidence, but it sowed doubt among the guards. Grak and his fellows exchanged uneasy glances, their batons lowering slightly. Crowd, sensing the shift, began to thin further, the thrill of the shamming evaporating under the weight of potential off-world intervention. "Fine," Torin spat finally, his voice dripping with venom. "Take them both to holding, we'll sort this at the tribunal tomorrow. But mark my words, human, you've just made a powerful enemy." As the guards moved in more cautiously now, Rin positioned himself between them and Kalia, guiding her gently but firmly. "Stay with me," he murmured. "We'll get through this." They were marched through the bazaar under guard, the remaining onlookers whispering as they passed. Kalia, wrapped in the coat, felt a flicker of hope amid the despair, her trembling easing slightly under Rin's protective presence. The holding cell was a grim affair, a small windowless chamber in the colony's security outpost, its walls reinforced with volcanic rock and durasteel, reeking of sulfur from nearby vents and the faint rust of neglected maintenance. The door clanged shut behind them, leaving them in dim, artificial light from a flickering overhead panel. Once alone, Kalia sank onto a hard bench, pulling the coat tighter around her like a lifeline. Her amber eyes, still glistening with unshed tears, met Rin's. Why did you risk everything for a stranger? She asked, her voice hoarse from the ordeal laced with the melodic accent of Silvaris, a world where speech flowed like wind through leaves. Rin leaned against the opposite wall, crossing his arms over his chest, his green eyes steady. Because what they were doing out there is flat out wrong. No one deserves to be treated like that, no matter the accusation. Name's Rin Calder, by the way, welder by trade, fixing scaffolds and ships across the galaxy and sometimes sticking my nose where it doesn't belong. He offered a small, reassuring smile, trying to lighten the mood. A faint, grateful smile touched Kalia's lips, the first crack in her armor of humiliation. Kalia Vren, archaeobotanist from Silvaris. I came here to study the volcanic flora. These caves hold plants unlike anything in known space, bioluminescent species that could heal diseases or stabilize failing atmospheres. But I discovered something else, Torin Scal's smuggling ring. He's harvesting rare specimens illegally, selling them to pirates and collectors. When I gathered evidence, he framed me as a spy to silence me. Rin's jaw tightened, his mind already turning over possibilities. Sounds like standard colonial corruption. Greed turns people into monsters. We need that evidence. It's our ticket out of this mess. Kalia nodded, her expression gaining strength. It's on a data shard encrypted and hidden in my field kit at the research camp outside the colony, but Torin's guards are probably swarming the site by now. Rin's eyes sparkled with determination. Then we'll have to be smarter than them. First things first, getting you out of here. I've got tools in my kit that can bypass basic locks like this one. He glanced at the door, assessing the mechanism. As they waited for nightfall, their conversation deepened. Kalia spoke of Silvaris's endless forests, where trees sang in the wind and knowledge was passed through living vines. Rin shared tales of Earth's turbulent history, its oceans that crashed with untamed fury and the human spirit's refusal to break. An unspoken connection began to form, born of shared vulnerability and mutual respect. As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting the colony in an eerie red glow from lava vents, Rin used a concealed multi-tool, a versatile gadget he'd modified himself, to bypass the cell's magnetic lock. A soft click and they were free, slipping into the shadows of the service alleys that snaked behind the bazaar. Patrols roamed the main paths, their flashlights cutting through the ash-laden air, but Rin's knowledge of outpost layouts guided them safely. Kalia's bare feet protested against the rough terrain, but she pushed on, the coat her only shield against the cooling night. They reached Rin's rented quarters, a cluttered prefab shack on the colony's outskirts, surrounded by stacks of welding rods and plasma cutters. It's not much, Rin said, keying open the door with a biometric scan, but it's secure, no surveillance feeds. Inside, the space was a welder's haven, workbenches littered with slag and tools, holographic schematics of scaffolds flickering in the air, and a small cot in the corner. Kalia hesitated at the threshold, overwhelmed by his kindness. Thank you for the coat, for everything. I don't know how to repay you. Rin waved it off, rummaging for a medical kit. No repayment needed. Let's get those bruises looked at and find you some clothes. My spare jumpsuit should work. He turned away respectfully as she changed, busying himself with brewing a hot stimulant from his rations. Dressed in the oversized garment, its fabric rough but comforting, Kalia sat, sipping the drink. On Silvaris, nudity isn't inherently shameful. Our clans celebrate the body as part of nature, but being forced, exposed as punishment. That's what strips away your essence. Rin nodded thoughtfully, handing her a compress for her feet. Humans have complicated rules about it too, cultural hang-ups from old religions and societies. Context matters a lot. What they did was about power, not justice. Their talk flowed into the night, bridging their worlds. Kalia's curiosity about human resilience sparked against Rin's admiration for her scholarly depth. A subtle tension built, not just from the danger but from an emerging attraction, her graceful poise contrasting his rugged charm. A sudden calm alert shattered the peace. Torin had issued a colony-wide bounty, complete with hollow images of them both. We need that data shard now, Rin said, checking his wrist scanner for patrol patterns. Kalia agreed, but as they planned their next move, she placed a slender hand on his arm. On Silvaris, an act like yours creates a root bond, a sacred debt of trust and protection. It's not taken lightly. Rin's grin was warm, his green eyes softening. Call it what you want, but I'm in this because it's right. No bonds or debts, just partnership. Yet their shared glance held longer, a spark of something deeper igniting in the dim light. They ventured out in the pre-dawn haze, the air thick with swirling ash that cloaked their movements. Kalia led the way to the research camp, a cluster of prefab tents and sensor arrays at the edge of a vast volcanic crater where glowing plants pulsed like living stars in the darkness. The shards in my field kit hidden under a false panel designed to look like rock samples, she whispered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. But as they approached, floodlights snapped on, illuminating armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Torin's men had anticipated them. Rin's mind raced, drawing on years of improvisation. He spotted a nearby generator humming with power and rigged it with a small plasma charge from his welding kit, a controlled overload that sparked a dazzling explosion of sparks and smoke, drawing the patrols away in confusion. Seizing the moment, they darted into the camp. Kalia retrieved the shard from her kit, its crystalline surface glowing faintly with encrypted data. This has everything: transaction logs, buyer IDs, even samples of the smuggled flora, she said, her amber eyes alight with triumph. But as they turned to flee, Kalia's foot caught on a loose cable, twisting her ankle with a sharp crack of pain. She stifled a cry, but Rin was there in an instant, scooping her up with effortless strength. "I've got you," he assured, carrying her through the shadows as alarms began to wail. They made it back to the shack just as dawn's first light pierced the ash clouds, the shard secure in Rin's pocket. As Kalia rested her ankle elevated on a crate, Rin analyzed the data on his portable console. "Solid proof, links torn to pirate syndicates across 3 sectors. We transmit this to the guild and he's finished, arrests, asset freezes, the works." Kalia's eyes softened with gratitude. "You've given me more than escape, Rin. You've restored my faith in kindness across the stars." He met her gaze, the air between them charged with unspoken emotion. "And you've shown me that even in a place like this, there's beauty worth fighting for." Their fingers brushed as he handed her the console, a simple touch that lingered, kindling a warmth that had nothing to do with the volcanic heat outside. But peace was short-lived. Rin's scanner picked up approaching signals, Torrens' forces closing in. Worse, the data revealed a betrayal. Kalia's assistant, a wiry cyborg named Vex 3, had been feeding information to Torren for a share of the profits. "Vex was like a sibling to me," Kalia said, her voice breaking with hurt. "We shared discoveries, late-night theories." Rin's expression hardened, his protective instincts flaring. "Betrayal cuts deep, but we'll handle it together." They gathered their gear, slipping into the colony's geothermal vents, a network of steaming tunnels that snaked beneath the surface, used for maintenance but rarely patrolled. The heat was intense, waves of humid air making their clothes cling, but it provided cover. As they crawled through narrow passages, pressed close in the confined spaces, Kalia distracted from the discomfort by asking about Earth. "Tell me more, your world storms the way the seas roar." Rin chuckled, his voice echoing softly. "Earth's a wild place, thunder that shakes the ground, waves taller than buildings. You'd fit right in with your plant knowledge. Our forests are alive in ways that rival Silvaris." She smiled, her hand finding his in the dim light. "And I'd show you our glowing groves where vines weave stories into the night." In one particularly tight section, their bodies aligned unavoidably, the proximity amplifying the growing pull between them, a mix of adrenaline, shared purpose, and undeniable chemistry. Emerging near the bazaar under the cover of a fresh ash storm, they spotted Vex 3 conferring with Torren's men, its mechanical limbs gesturing animatedly. "We need to confront them," Rin said, his voice resolute. But Kalia hesitated, her mind piecing together more from the data. "There's worse, the plants Torren smuggles. One species is a potential bioweapon, spores that could induce mass hallucinations or worse, wipe out colonies if released improperly. He's not just greedy, he's dangerous." The stakes escalated, transforming their escape into a mission to avert catastrophe. They infiltrated Torren's storage vault, a fortified cavern hidden behind a false stall in the bazaar, dodging laser tripwires and automated sentries with Rin's welding skills and Kalia's knowledge of the terrain. Inside, amid crates of illicit goods, they found the bioplant, a pulsating mass of vines and glowing pods, its spores humming with latent energy. Rin neutralized it with a hastily mixed coolant spray from his kit, the plant withering safely, but the action triggered alarms, summoning guards. Frantic skirmish ensued, guards firing stun bolts that scorched the air, Rin dodging and countering with improvised EMP grenades that shorted their weapons, while Kalia hacked a security turret, reprogramming it to target the enforcers. Blasts echoed through the vault, crates exploding in showers of debris. In the chaos, Vex 3 cornered them, its optic sensors glowing red. "You organics are relics in this galaxy," it sneered, extending a blade arm. Kalia's voice cracked with betrayal. "Why Vex?" "We were partners," the cyborg's voice modulator crackled. "Torren offered upgrades, power beyond your fragile biology. Survival demands adaptation." Rin lunged, deploying a full EMP pulse that fried Vex 3 circuits, leaving it slumped and sparking. They fled the vault, hearts pounding, transmitting the shard's data to the guild via Rin's encrypted comm as they ran. Torren himself pursued an armored hoversled, its engines roaring through the lava fields outside the colony. Dodging eruptions of molten rock, Kalia manned a makeshift turret on Rin's skiff, her shots precise despite the jolts. "For Silvaris," she cried, a blast disabling Torren's sled, sending it crashing into a chasm. Captured and bound, Torren spat curses. "This isn't overhuman, my contacts will bury you." Rin smirked, securing him. "For you it is, the guild's on its way." As enforcers arrived, summoned by the transmission, calm began to settle over the colony. Kalia turned to Rin, her amber eyes shining. "What comes next?" He pulled her close, the tension of battle giving way to tenderness. "Us exploring the stars one world at a time." Their kiss, sapphire skin against tan, sealed a bond forged in the fires of Vexar 9. But faint whispers from the data hinted at a larger syndicate, shadows that promised more adventures and dangers ahead. The aftermath of Torren Scal's downfall rippled through Vexar 9 like aftershocks from a deep-core quake, shaking the foundations of the colony's fragile order. The bazaar, once a hub of chaotic commerce and whispered deals, now buzzed with a different energy, relief mixed with uncertainty. Miners who had long suffered under Torren's iron rule gathered in small groups, sharing stories of his extortions and abuses, their voices louder now that the fear had lifted. The air still carried the heavy scent of volcanic ash and molten ore, but there was a subtle shift. The dual sun seemed less oppressive, casting a warmer glow on the ramshackle stalls as traders cautiously resumed business, wary of the Confederacy enforcers who had descended upon the outpost like a swarm of regulatory drones. Hollow screens flickered with official announcements. Investigations ongoing, interim leadership appointed, and promises of fairer resource distribution that elicited skeptical grunts from the hardened workers. In the midst of this transition, Kalia Vren and Rin Calder found a momentary haven in Rin's prefab shack, its walls now reinforced with hasty welds he'd applied during their brief respite. The data shard's transmission to the Interstellar Engineering Guild had worked like a charm. Within hours, a Confederacy patrol vessel had orbited the planet, deploying teams to secure Torrens' assets and interrogate his accomplices. Vex 3, the traitorous cyborg, had been deactivated and shipped off for forensic analysis, its memory banks yielding even more evidence of the smuggling ring's reach. But as the dust settled, Kalia couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her. Shard had hinted at a larger syndicate, shadowy figures operating from core worlds, using colonies like Vexar 9 as disposable pawns in a galactic game of power and profit. Seated on the cot, her ankle wrapped in a makeshift splint from Rin's medical supplies, Kalia pored over a holographic projection of the data, her amber eyes narrowing at encrypted fragments that resisted her decryption algorithms. "There's more here," she murmured, her jet-black hair falling forward as she leaned in. References to a Nexus consortium, a network of buyers who aren't just collectors. They're weaponizing the flora, turning natural defenses into bioagents for corporate wars. Rin, hunched over his workbench, paused in the midst of calibrating a plasma cutter, its blue arc flickering like a captured star. His tan hands, scarred from countless welds, moved with practiced precision, but his green eyes flicked to her with concern. As a welder, he'd built his life on joining broken things, fusing metals under extreme heat, creating strength from fragility. Now he found himself applying that mindset to their situation. If that's true, taking down Torren was just the first seam. We need to trace these leads before the syndicate covers their tracks. He wiped sweat from his brow, the shack's air recycler humming inefficiently against the rising heat. Kalia nodded, deactivating the holo with a wave. The consortium's hub is on Zeta Prime, a neutral station in the outer rim, but getting there means leaving Vexar 9 and with bounties potentially still active. Her voice trailed off, the weight of their bond pressing on her. In the quiet hours after the chase, they'd shared more than words, a tentative exploration of the attraction that had sparked amid danger. Her sapphire skin against his tanned arms, the way his steady presence anchored her chaos, it was new, exhilarating, and terrifying. Rin set down the cutter and crossed to her, kneeling so their eyes were level. "We're in this together, remember, root bond or whatever you call it. I've got contacts in the guild who can arrange discreet transport, but first we need to make sure the colony's safe. Torren's lieutenants might try a last-ditch play." His hand cupped her cheek, thumb tracing the line of a fatting bruise, a gesture that sent warmth through her despite the pain. Before she could respond, a sharp rap echoed at the door, 3 quick knocks, a signal from one of the miners who'd witnessed the confrontation. Rin opened it cautiously, revealing a grizzled foreman named Jorek, his scales dusted with ore, eyes wide with alarm. "Trouble brewing in the lower shafts," Jorek hissed, glancing over his shoulder. "Some of Torren's loyalists are sabotaging the scaffold, setting charges to collapse the main vein. If it goes, half the colony's buried." Rin's face hardened. "Why now?" Jorek shrugged. "Revenge or covering evidence. Confederacy's focused on the surface, they don't know the tunnels like we do." Kalia stood, wincing at her ankle but determined. "The bioweapon spores, if they're stored down there, a collapse could release them. We have to stop it." The trio moved swiftly through the colony's underbelly, descending into the mining tunnels via a service lift that groaned under their weight. The air grew thicker, laced with the metallic bite of drilled rock and the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls, remnants of the flora Kalia had come to study. Rin's welding expertise proved invaluable. He spotted weakened supports along the way, pausing to reinforce them with quick plasma seals, the tool's hum echoing like a warning. "These beams are tampered with," he noted, his green eyes scanning the shadows. "Someone's been here recently." Deeper in, the tunnels branched into a labyrinth of shafts, the rumble of distant machinery masking their footsteps. Jorek led them to a restricted chamber, a hidden cache where Torren had stashed his illicit harvests. But as they approached, voices echoed, harsh whispers in a mix of languages, accompanied by the beep of arming explosives. Kalia's heart raced. She recognized one voice, Lyra, Torren's second-in-command, a sly insectoid with mandibles that clicked in agitation. Peering from cover, they saw Lyra and 3 henchmen planting charges around crates of glowing plants, the bioweapon among them. "When this blows, the evidence vanishes and the blueskin takes the blame," Lyra chittered. Rin signaled silently, his welder's instincts kicking in. "I can fuse the charges, detonators, make 'em dud, cover me." Jorek and Kalia provided distraction, lobbing rocks to draw attention while Rin crept forward, plasma cutter set to low intensity. The tool's arc danced across wires, melting connections with surgical precision. But one henchman spotted him, firing a bolt that grazed Rin's shoulder, searing flesh. Pain flared, but he rolled behind a crate, returning fire with a stun setting from his multi-tool. Chaos erupted, blasts lighting the chamber, shadows dancing wildly. Kalia, ignoring her ankle, hacked a nearby console to activate emergency seals, isolating the spores. Jorek tackled a guard, his strength born of years in the mines prevailing. Lyra lunged at Kalia, mandibles snapping, but Rin intervened, welding a metal beam to pin the insectoid. "It's over," he growled, binding Lyra as Confederacy alerts blared from their comms. With the saboteurs subdued and the threat neutralized, they emerged to the surface, the colony's miners cheering their return. The Confederacy team, alerted by Jorak, took custody, praising Rin's quick thinking. Your welding saved lives, a officer noted, but as adrenaline faded, Kalia tended Rin's wound, her touch lingering. You keep saving me, she whispered. He grinned through the pain. Partnership right now about Zeta Prime. The decision crystallized. They'd pursue the syndicate, turning their bond into a quest. En route to the orbital station aboard a guild shuttle, the stars streaked past like promises. Kalia, her ankle healing, explored the ship's hydroponics bay, her botanist soul delighting in the artificial ecosystems. Rin joined her, sharing stories of welding orbital rings under zero-G, his hands demonstrating techniques that fascinated her. It's like fusing worlds, she said, her amber eyes reflecting the grow lights. Their connection deepened in quiet moments, shared meals where flavors from their homes blended, laughter over cultural quirks. One evening in the dim cabin, Kalia traced his scars. Each one a story, he nodded. This from a hull breach on Titan Station, that from a faulty arc on Mars. Her fingers lingered, sparking heat. On Silvaris, scars are badges of growth. She leaned in, their kiss igniting like a plasma flare, bodies exploring differences and similarities in the weightless embrace. Zeta Prime loomed, a glittering hub of trade and intrigue, its spires piercing the void. Docking amid freighters and luxury yachts, they disguised themselves, Kalia with a pigmentation mask dulling her blue skin to neutral gray, Rin in nondescript worker gear. The station's corridors pulsed with life, merchants hawking neural implants, spies whispering in shadowed alcoves, the air scented with exotic spices and ozone from energy fields. Their lead, a consortium contact named Vara Voss, a elusive trader in biotech. Infiltrating her warehouse required Rin's skills. He welded a false panel for entry, the arc silent under suppressors. Inside, crates hummed with life, stolen flora from dozens of worlds. Kalia scanned, confirming links to Vexar 9, but alarms triggered. Voss's security advanced droids with laser grids. A chase ensued through the station's underlevels, dodging patrols and leaping across maintenance catwalks. Rin fused a bridge to block pursuers, his tool a lifeline. They cornered Voss in her office, data drives in hand. You're meddling in forces beyond you, she sneered, a holographic syndicate map flickering. Interrogation revealed the next layer, a core world auction where the bioweapon would sell to the highest bidder. Escaping with the drives, they evaded capture, their bond tested and strengthened. We're deeper now, Kalia said, breathless. Rin pulled her close. Good thing I weld strong. The journey continued, adventures unfolding across systems, their love a fusion of hearts in the galactic forge. The orbital station Zeta Prime hung in the void like a colossal jewel forged from starlight and ambition, its sprawling spires and docking rings extending outward in a symphony of engineered chaos that defied the empty blackness of space. Constructed centuries ago as a neutral hub for interstellar trade, it had evolved into a labyrinthine metropolis where fortunes were made and lost in the blink of an eye, where diplomats rubbed shoulders with smugglers, and where the line between legality and shadow blurred into non-existence. The station's outer hull gleamed with a mosaic of holographic advertisements, flashing promises of neural enhancements, exotic vacations on pleasure worlds, and rare artifacts from forgotten civilizations, while massive cargo bays hummed with the constant arrival and departure of freighters laden with goods from across the galaxy. Inside, the atmosphere was a heady mix of recycled air scented with 1,000 alien spices, the ozone tang of energy shields, and the underlying musk of unwashed travelers from distant rims. Gravity plating ensured a stable down, but the station's rotation created subtle Coriolis effects that could disorient newcomers, making every step feel like a negotiation with physics itself. Kalia Vren and Rin Calder's guild shuttle docked at one of the outer berths with a gentle thud, the clamps engaging as the airlock cycled. The journey from Vexar 9 had been a brief but intense interlude, a few days of hyperspace travel that allowed them to catch their breath after the frenzy of the colony's upheaval. During those hours, confined to the shuttle's modest quarters, their bond had deepened in ways both subtle and profound. Kalia, her ankle nearly healed thanks to the ship's automed unit, had spent time in the hydroponics bay, tending to sample plants she'd salvaged from the bioweapon cache, tiny, glowing seedlings that pulsed with life, reminders of her homeworld's lush vitality. Rin, ever the practical welder, had busied himself repairing minor hull stresses on the shuttle, his plasma cutter singing as he fused microfractures, but he'd stolen moments to join her, sharing stories of his nomadic life, welding massive orbital rings around gas giants, patching starship hulls mid-battle with pirate fleets, and the quiet satisfaction of making something whole again. Their conversations had woven a tapestry of intimacy, bridging the gaps between their species. On Silvaris, Kalia had confided one evening as they shared a meal of replicated Earth-style stew and silver and nectar fruits in the dim glow of the cabin lights. Bonds formed slowly like vines entwining over seasons. But with you it's like a sudden bloom, unexpected, vibrant. Rin had chuckled, his green eyes crinkling at the corners, his tanned hand covering hers. Humans rush in, yeah, we weld hot and fast, hopping at holds, but this, he gestured between them. This feels solid, like a perfect fusion, no weak points. That night, in the privacy of their shared bunk, their exploration had turned physical, a tender discovery of differences, her sapphire skin cooler and smoother than his warm, scarred flesh. The way her bioluminescent markings faintly glowed in response to his touch like stars awakening, his steady strength contrasting her graceful agility. It was a fusion of bodies and souls, laughter mingling with gasps as they navigated the unfamiliar, finding harmony in the chaos. But now, stepping onto Zeta Prime's bustling concourse, the weight of their mission pressed down anew. Disguised to blend in, Kalia with a temporary pigmentation mask that dulled her vibrant blue to a mundane gray, her jet black hair hidden under a hooded cloak, and Rin in plain worker overalls that concealed his welding tools, they moved through the crowds like ghosts. The station teemed with life. Hulking quadrupeds from the Gorath clusters bartering for fuel cells, sleek androids negotiating data trades, and humans in corporate suits flashing credentials at security checkpoints. Overhead, drone messengers zipped by delivering packages, while holographic news feeds blared updates on galactic events. The latest Confederacy crackdown on pirate enclaves, fluctuations in mineral prices, and whispers of escalating tensions between core worlds. Their target, Vara Voss, the consortium contact gleaned from Lyra's interrogation back on Vexar 9. Voss was a notorious biotech trader, operating from a high-security warehouse in the station's industrial sector, a maze of storage vaults and loading docks where cargo containers stacked like monolithic tombs. According to the drives they'd stolen from her office, no, they hadn't infiltrated yet, that was the plan. Rin's guild contacts had provided a layout, access via maintenance tunnels guarded by automated turrets and biometric locks. "We'll need a distraction," Rin muttered as they navigated the throngs, his hand brushing Kalia's for reassurance. "I can weld a false panel for entry, but those droids are top-tier laser grids that could cut us in half." Kalia nodded, her masked face impassive but her amber eyes concealed behind tinted lenses sharp with calculation. "The flora data on the shard includes countermeasures. Some plants emit spores that disrupt electronics. If we can synthesize a small batch." Her botanist mind raced, drawing on years of fieldwork, dissecting alien ecosystems on storm-ravaged planets, cataloging species that could heal or harm. They ducked into a side alcove, a quiet nook amid the chaos, where Rin pulled out his portable console to simulate the synthesis. "Risky," he said, fingers flying over the holokeys. "But if it shorts the grids without alerting security, we're in." Hours passed in preparation, holed up in a cheap rental pod overlooking the docking rings, a cramped space with a viewport showing ships coming and going like migratory birds. Kalia mixed the spore compound using salvaged lab gear from the shuttle, her hands steady as she calibrated concentrations. Rin watched, admiration swelling, her precision mirrored his own in welding, each a craftsman in their field. "You're incredible," he said softly, pulling her into an embrace once the mixture set. "Botany's your plasma cutter, cutting through problems with elegance," she laughed, the sound muffled against his shoulder. "And you're my anchor, holding it all together." Night cycle on the station brought dimmed lights and thin crowds, the perfect window for infiltration. They approached the warehouse sector via service lifts, the air growing cooler and more industrial, scented with lubricant and charged particles. Rin's multi-tool made short work of an access hatch, welding it open with a hushed arc that sealed seamlessly behind them. Inside the tunnels, conduits hummed and distant machinery clanked like a mechanical heartbeat. Kalia released the spores, a fine mist that shimmered briefly before dispersing. Alarms flickered but died, the laser grid sputtering offline. The warehouse loomed, vast chambers stacked with crates, some humming with cryogenic seals preserving biosamples. They crept through shadows, Rin's scanner picking up life signs, Voss and guards. But as they neared her office, a trap sprung, hidden sensors activated, flooding the area with knockout gas. Kalia's mask filtered it, but Rin coughed, vision blurring. "Ambush," he rasped, welding a barrier from fallen debris as guards swarmed armored mercs with energy rifles. Gunfire lit the darkness, bolts scorching crates. Kalia dragged Rin to cover, her heart pounding. "Stay with me." She returned fire with a borrowed stun pistol, her shots accurate from silver and hunting training. Rin recovered, fusing a guard's weapon mid-shot, the metal melting into useless slag. They fought back-to-back, a synchronized dance, her agility dodging blasts, his strength improvising weapons from the environment, welding pipes into barricades, shorting droid circuits with targeted arcs. Voss emerged, an elegant figure in flowing robes, her face a mask of cybernetic enhancements glowing coldly. "Intruders," she sneered, activating a force field. "You think taking Torin down matters? The consortium is eternal." A fierce exchange followed, Voss unleashing drones that swarmed like insects. Kalia used remaining spores to jam their sensors, while Rin welded a crane arm to smash them. Cornered, Voss bargained, "Join us, your skills botany and welding could command fortunes." They refused, subduing her with a combined takedown, Kalia's hack overriding the field, Rin's weld sealing her escape. Data drives secured, they fled as station security converged, alerted by the commotion. Back in their pod, panting and bruised, they decrypted the files. "An auction on Corvex III," Kalia gasped. "The bioweapons the prize, buyers from rival corporations." Rin bandaged a wound, pulling her close. "Then that's our next stop, but first." Their kiss was fierce, a reaffirmation amid peril. Corvex III awaited, a glittering casino world of opulence and vice, where the auction would unfold in hidden vaults beneath neon-lit spires. En route they trained, Kalia teaching Rin about biothreats, he showing her welding basics. Intimacy grew, nights entangled, days planning. A subplot emerged. A a stowaway informant from Zeta Prime, a young mechanic named Tira who joined their cause after witnessing Voss's cruelty. Tira's skills complemented Rin's, adding humor and tension as she bantered with the couple. On Corvex disguised as high rollers, they infiltrated the auction lavish halls with floating chandeliers, guests in extravagant attire. Bids soared for artifacts, but the bioweapon lot drew sharks, corporate execs with private armies. A twist, the weapon wasn't just spores, it was a sentient plant capable of evolving. Kalia felt a kinship, horrified at its weaponization. Action peaked, syndicate agents spotted them, sparking a casino brawl, chandeliers crashing, gamblers fleeing. Rin welded doors shut, Kalia released counterspores to neutralize threats. They stole the plant, escaping in a high-speed chase through aerial traffic, Tira piloting a borrowed speeder. Victorious but hunted, they hid on a nearby moon, the plant safe. Relationships deepened. Kalia and Rin confessed love under alien stars, Tira becoming family. But the syndicate's reach extended, a massive fleet approaching, signaling war. The saga continued, bonds unbreakable, adventures endless. The moon of Lurath IV, a desolate orb cloaked in a thin, shimmering atmosphere, hung in the shadow of Corvex III, its jagged crystalline cliffs and luminescent pools reflecting the distant neon glow of the casino world. The air carried a faint tang of ionized minerals, remnants of ancient meteor impacts that had seeded the moon with rare elements, making it a prospector's dream left untouched due to its unstable tectonics. The ground trembled faintly, a reminder of the moon's restless core, as Kalia, Vren, Rin Calder, and their new ally Tira huddled in a shallow cave carved into a cliff face, its walls glinting with opalescent quartz under their portable luminary. The sentient plant, rescued from the auction's chaos, rested in a sealed biocontainer at Kalia's side, its bioluminescent fronds pulsing softly as if aware of its precarious freedom. Their stolen speeder, a sleek but battered model, lay hidden under a thermal tarp outside, its engines still warm from the high-speed chase through Corvex II's aerial traffic. Inside the cave, the air was cool but heavy with tension, broken only by dripping mineral-rich water from stalactites. Kalia knelt beside the plant, her masked face, dulled to gray to avoid detection, etched with awe and concern as she scanned the container. Her amber eyes, hidden behind tinted lenses, flickered with data. The plant's neural activity was extraordinary, its biochemistry shifting in response to stimuli. "This isn't just sentient," she whispered, her silver and accent melodic even through exhaustion. "It's evolving, adapting to stress, maybe communicating. On Silvaris, we have legends of thinking flora, but this is a mind in roots and leaves." Her jet-black hair, freed from the cloak and loosely tied back, shimmered with bioluminescent beads, a reclaiming of her identity. Rin, leaning against the cave wall, adjusted the bandage on his laser-burned shoulder, his sun-bleached hair matted with sweat, green eyes scanning for pursuit. As a welder, he was used to high-stakes jobs, fusing hull plates in zero-G, sealing reactor leaks, but this mission tested his limits. The Syndicate's shadow loomed, and the fleet they'd spotted made his jaw tight. "If that thing can think," he said, nodding at the plant, "it's a bigger liability than we thought. The consortium won't stop. That fleet's too big for retrieval. They're planning something massive." He checked his plasma cutter's charge, its hum a comfort in the uncertainty. Tira, the young mechanic from Zeta Prime, sat cross-legged, tinkering with a salvaged drone fragment. Her violet hair caught the luminary's glow, her coveralls patched from years in station underbellies. "Fleet's not just consortium," she said, rewiring circuits. "Hack their chatter, coordinating with Helix Dynamics, a rogue corp planning to weaponize the plant for a coup on Coruscant 7. Big players, big credits." Her casual tone belied her trembling fingers. Kalia's scanner confirmed. The drives from Voss mentioned a contract for spore deployment on Coruscant 7, paralyzing infrastructure for a takeover. "This is terrorism," she said, tightening her grip on the container. "We can't hide, we must stop the buyers." Rin mapped logistics like a weld. "The auction was a front, they're moving the real deal to Nithra, a shadow port in the outer veil. We intercept the buyers, destroy the bioweapons." To Tira, "Can you make the speeder space-worthy?" Tira grinned, pulling a power cell from the drone. 2 hours it'll purr, but we need fuel and nav updates. Nithra's off-grid." Kalia, torn by her duty to protect life, discovered the plant responded to frequencies, a way to neutralize its spores. Rin suggested a contact, Jessicor, a welding partner with a salvage yard in the Vale. "She's tricky, plays both sides," he warned. They prepared. Tira rigged the speeder, Kalia synthesized spores, Rin welded the cave entrance. At dawn, Shade's Predator-class ship entered orbit. They launched, Tira's piloting dodging lasers through asteroid fields. Jessa's yard, orbiting a gas giant, was a sprawl of wrecked ships. Jessa, silver-streaked and scarred, bartered routes for Rin's welding. A consortium trapped by her second-in-command was thwarted, cementing her loyalty. Nithra's shadow port, buried in an asteroid belt, hosted the underground auction. Disguised as traders, they infiltrated Tira, looping feeds, Rin welding an exit. The sentient plant spores were on display, horrifying Kalia. Her frequency device destabilized them, sparking chaos. Mercs fired, the arena erupted. Shade attacked, but Tira's drone and Rin's welds neutralized him. Jess's crew covered their escape as the fleet bombarded the port. Safe on a hidden freighter, Kalia vowed to protect the plant. Rin, pulling her clothes, said, "We're rewriting the stars." Tira plodded ahead, their bond unbreakable, ready for the galaxy's next challenge. The hidden freighter, a battered relic of a bygone trade war named Stellar Wisp, drifted silently in the uncharted reaches of the outer veil, its hull cloaked by a patchwork of stealth plating that Rin had painstakingly welded into place during their escape from Nithra's shadow port. The ship loaned by Jessicor's salvage network was a labyrinth of cramped corridors, flickering control panels, and cargo holds stuffed with scavenged tech, its air thick with the scent of recycled oxygen, burnt wiring, and the faint organic musk of the sentient plant Kalia cradled in her arms. The Wisp's engines hummed at a low frequency, just enough to keep them adrift in the asteroid-strewn void, evading the Nexus Consortium's pursuing fleet. Beyond the viewport, the outer veil stretched infinitely, a cosmic tapestry of nebulae swirling in hues of violet and crimson, punctuated by the cold glint of distant stars and the occasional flare of a supernova remnant. It was a region where galactic law held no sway, where pirates, smugglers, and rogue corporations carved out their own empires among the wreckage of forgotten civilizations. Inside the Wisp's command bay, a dimly lit chamber cluttered with mismatched consoles and jury-rigged holo-projectors, Kalia Vren, Rin Calder, Tira, and Jessicor gathered around a flickering holo table, its surface displaying a fragmented star map pieced together from the data drives stolen from Varavas. Kalia, her pigmentation mask removed to reveal her sapphire-blue skin, stood with a quiet intensity, her jet-black hair woven back into intricate silveran braids adorned with bioluminescent beads that pulsed faintly in rhythm with her heartbeat. The sentient plant, now nicknamed Luma for its glowing fronds, rested in its biocontainer beside her, its neural signals spiking on her scanner whenever she spoke to it, a phenomenon that both fascinated and unnerved her. Luma, responding to our presence, she said, her voice soft but carrying the melodic cadence of her homeworld. It's not just reacting to stimuli, it's learning, possibly even mimicking our emotions. If the consortium weaponizes more like it, entire systems could fall to psychological chaos. Her amber eyes, no longer hidden by lenses, flickered with a mix of determination and dread as she traced a glowing line on the map toward their next destination. Coruscant 7, the core world targeted by Helix Dynamics coup. Rin, his tan face smudged with welding soot, leaned over the table, his green eyes narrowing at the map's coordinates. His utility coat, patched from laser burns sustained in the Nithra skirmish, hung loosely over his wiry frame, its pockets still bristling with tools. As a welder, he'd spent his life fusing the galaxy's broken pieces, starship hulls, orbital scaffolds, even the occasional alien artifact, but this mission was a weld of a different kind, binding their fates in ways he hadn't anticipated. Coruscant 7, a fortress world, he said, his voice a low rumble tempered by years of shouting over plasma arcs. Sky cities, shielded districts, private armies for every corp. If Helix is staging a coup, they'll have the bioweapons secured in a vault deeper than Vexar 9 mines. We need to know their entry point ports, sewers, or maybe a corporate spire. He tapped a console, pulling up schematics of the planet's infrastructure, his welder's mind already mapping entry seams like he would a hull repair. Tira, sprawled in a pilot's chair with her boots propped on the console, spun a micro-tool between her fingers, her violet hair catching the hollow's glow. At 20, her brash confidence masked a keen intellect honed in Zeta Prime's underbelly, where she'd rewired smuggler ships and dodged enforcers since childhood. I cracked more of Voss's drives, she said, tossing a data chip onto the table. Helix is using a front some charity called Nova Relief to smuggle the spores in medical shipments. They're landing at Port Azura, a low-security dock in the lower districts. If we hit that, we can trace the cargo. Her grin was sharp, but her eyes darted to the viewport, wary of the fleet's shadow. Problem is, Shade's still out there. Their ship's cloaked, but my drone, picking up faint ion trails. They're close. Jessicor, standing at the edge of the group, crossed her arms, her silver-streaked hair tied back to reveal a face etched with scars from a lifetime of welding and double-dealing. Her salvage yard had given them this ship, but her loyalty was hard-won, forged in the betrayal of her second-in-command back in the Vale. Shade, not your only worry, she said, her voice gravelly from years of shouting over salvage cranes. Coruscant 7, crawling with corporate spies, Nova Relief's got ties to the Planetary Council, bribe enough senators and they'll look the other way. You'll need more than a welder and a botanist to crack that world. My crew's ready, but we're not cheap. Her eyes flicked to Rin, a challenge in her smirk. You sure you want to dive this deep, Calder? Last time you owed me, I nearly lost a freighter. Rin met her gaze, unflinching. You got your yard's defenses welded, didn't you? We're square, but we need your contacts, someone who knows Coruscant 7, underbelly. He glanced at Kalia, a silent reassurance passing between them. Their bond, forged in the fires of Vexar 9 and tempered through Nithra's chaos, was a fusion stronger than any alloy he'd ever worked. Her touch, a brief brush of her hand against his, grounded him, a reminder of why he was here, not just for justice but for her. The plan took shape over hours of heated discussion, the hollow table littered with ration wrappers and empty stim cans. Tira's hack revealed Port Azura's schedules, pinpointing a Nova Relief shipment due in 3 days. Kalia proposed using Luma's frequencies to disrupt the spore's activation, potentially neutralizing them without destruction, a compromise that eased her ethical qualms. Rin suggested welding decoy containers to smuggle themselves into the port, while Jessa offered her crew's firepower and a contact, a disgraced ex-senator named Vren Thal who'd been exiled to the lower districts after crossing Helix Dynamics. He's bitter and broke, Jessa said. Perfect for spilling secrets if you can stomach his whining. As the Wisp charted a course through the Vale's asteroid fields, dodging ion storms and pirate beacons, the trio prepared. Kalia tended to Luma, her botanist's hands coaxing responses from its fronds, learning its language of pulses and chemical signals. She discovered it could emit microspores that disrupted neural implants, a potential weapon against Shade's cybernetics. Rin reinforced the freighter's hull, welding stealth plates to counter scans, his plasma cutters arc a steady rhythm that echoed his resolve. Tira upgraded the ship's systems, boosting its sensors to track Shade's cloaked ship, her banter keeping spirits high despite the looming threat. The journey wasn't without peril. A sudden ion storm battered the Wisp, forcing Rin to weld a breached panel mid-flight, his suit tethered to the hull as lightning arced around him. Kalia, monitoring from inside, guided him through comms, her voice a lifeline. "You're doing fine, Rin, just like fusing a scaffold," he chuckled, sparks flying. "Yeah, but scaffolds don't shoot back." Tira's quick rewiring stabilized the ship, but the storm revealed Shade's ship trailing them, its silhouette a menacing shadow against the nebula. Coruscant 7 loomed after days of tense travel, a planet of towering sky cities that pierced the clouds, their spires aglow with hollow billboards advertising luxury goods and corporate power. Port Azura, nestled in the lower districts, was a gritty contrast, a sprawl of rusted docks, neon-lit bars, and warehouses where smugglers thrived under the Council's blind eye. The Wisp docked under forged credentials, the crew disguised as cargo haulers. Kalia's pigmentation mask returned, her blue skin hidden to blend with the human-dominated crowds. Rin's welder's gear was concealed in a crate, his plasma cutter tucked into a hidden holster. Tira, posing as a tech vendor, carried her drone in a backpack, its sensors scanning for threats. Vrenthal's hideout was a dingy apartment in a crumbling tower, its walls stained with coolant leaks and graffiti. The ex-senator, a gaunt man with sunken eyes and a nervous tic, greeted them with suspicion, his voice slurred from cheap synth alcohol. "Helix ruined me," he spat, packing. "They control the council, the ports, everything. Nova Relief's just their mask. The spores are stored in Vault 17 under the central spire, biometric locks, droid guards, and a kill switch that'll release the spores if you trip it." He handed over a partial access code, bartered for a promise of passage off-world. The infiltration was a masterclass in coordination. Tira hacked port systems, diverting patrols, while Rin welded a service hatch for entry, his cutter silent under suppressors. Kalia used Luma's microspores to jam security sensors, her heart heavy as she manipulated the plant's essence. Inside Vault 17, they found crates of spores glowing ominously, but a trap awaited, Helix enforcers tipped off by an unknown traitor. A firefight erupted, lasers scorching walls, Rin welding barriers, Tira's drone disabling droids. Kalia activated Luma's frequencies, neutralizing the spores, but Shade appeared, their cybernetic arm launching neurodarts. In the chaos, Jess's crew stormed in, their arrival a surprise orchestrated by her earlier comms. The battle turned, Rin fused Shade's weapon arm into slag, Tira hacked their implants, and Kalia shielded Luma. But the kill switch triggered, releasing a spore cloud. Kalia's quick thinking, using Luma's counter-frequencies, contained it, saving the city. They escaped with the neutralized spores, Vrenthal in tow, but the traitor's identity haunted them. Tira's drone logs revealed Jessa's lieutenant had sent a signal. Confronted, Jessa executed him, her face grim. "No more betrayals," she vowed. The Wisp fled Coruscant 7, the fleet in pursuit, but Tira's upgrades outran them. On a remote asteroid base, they regrouped, Luma safe. Kalia and Rin's love deepened, their nights a fusion of passion and purpose. Tira, now family, proposed a new plan, expose the Consortium's network galaxy-wide. The stars beckoned, their bond a weld against the coming storm. The asteroid base, a forgotten relic known as Outpost K-47, clung to the edge of a barren rock in the outer veil's fringes, its pitted surface orbiting a dying star whose crimson light cast long, eerie shadows across the jagged landscape. The base itself was a warren of interconnected domes and tunnels, cobbled together from salvaged starship hulls, abandoned mining rigs, and reinforced durasteel plates, some bearing the scorch marks of battles long past. Its air recyclers wheezed, filling the chambers with a metallic tang overlaid with the faint, acrid bite of asteroid dust that never quite settled. Dimly lit by flickering lumen strips, the base's corridors echoed with the hum of outdated generators and the occasional clank of loose panels, a testament to its decades of neglect. Yet for Kalia Vren, Rin Calder, Tira, and their unlikely ally Vrenthal, it was a sanctuary, a temporary shield from the Nexus Consortium's relentless pursuit and the looming threat of Helix Dynamics' galactic ambitions. Inside the central dome, a cavernous space once used for ore processing, the stellar Wisp rested on a makeshift landing pad, its stealth plating dulled by microabrasions from the Vale's asteroid fields. The freighter's hull, patched with Rin's precise welds, bore new scars from their escape from Coruscant 7, where they'd thwarted the bioweapons deployment but uncovered a deeper layer of the Consortium's network. The sentient plant Luma sat in its biocontainer on a crate, its bioluminescent fronds casting a soft, pulsing glow that bathed the dome in an otherworldly light. Kalia knelt beside it, her sapphire-blue skin shimmering faintly under the glow, her jet-black hair woven into tight silveran braids that glimmered with bioluminescent beads, each a symbol of her clan's reverence for life. Her amber eyes, sharp with focus, scanned the plant's neural readouts on a portable console, her botanist's mind piecing together its evolving behavior. Luma, adapting faster than I expected, she said, her voice soft but laced with urgency. It's mimicking our neural patterns, almost like it's trying to communicate intent. If we can decode its signals, we might find a way to counter the consortium's weaponized variants without destroying them. Her fingers brushed the container, a gesture of connection that elicited a faint pulse from Luma, as if acknowledging her presence. Rin, leaning against a rusted support beam, wiped sweat from his brow, his tan face smudged with welding flux. His utility coat, patched and singed, hung heavy with tools, plasma cutter, micro-welders, and a multi-tool he'd modified for hacking locks. As a welder, he'd spent years fusing the galaxy's broken edges, starship hulls, orbital scaffolds, mining rigs under collapse, but this mission was a weld of purpose and survival, binding him to Kalia and their cause. His green eyes flicked to her, a mix of admiration and resolve. If we can talk to that plant, it's a game changer, he said, his voice a steady rumble. But the consortium's not waiting. Those drives from Coruscant 7 point to a bigger operation, a production facility somewhere in the Veil. They're mass-producing spores, and if Tira's right about helix dynamics, they're planning to hit multiple worlds, not just Coruscant 7. He pulled up a holomap on the dome's central console, its flickering projection showing a cluster of uncharted systems deep in the Veil, one pulsing red, a potential location for the facility. Tira, sprawled across a salvage chair, spun a circuit probe between her fingers, her violet hair catching the hollow's glow. At 20, her brash demeanor hid a sharp mind honed in Zeta Prime's underbelly, where she'd rewired smugglers' ships and outsmarted enforcers. Her coveralls, patched with insulation tape, were stained with grease from upgrading the WISP systems. I cracked more of the drives, she said, tossing a data chip onto the console. The facility, on Valthar 3, a dead rock with underground labs, heavily guarded droid sentries, orbital cannons, the works. Helix is bankrolling it, but the consortium's calling the shots. They've got a new player too, someone called the Architect. No face, no species, just a codename. Sounds like the brains behind the spore weaponization. Her grin faltered, her eyes darting to the dome's entrance, where Vrenthal stood, his gaunt frame hunched over a cracked tablet. The ex-senator, his once polished demeanor eroded by years of exile and synth alcohol, paced nervously, his sunken eyes scanning the group. The Architect, he muttered, his voice slurred but edged with fear. I heard whispers on Coruscant 7. They're a shadow, someone who manipulates entire systems from behind the scenes. If they're involved, Valthar 3 not just a lab, it's a fortress. You'll need more than a welder's tricks to get in. His tick twitched, a reminder of his broken spirit, but his knowledge of corporate politics made him valuable if unreliable. Jessicor, who joined them after the Nithra raid, stood at the dome's edge, her silver-streaked hair pulled back to reveal scars that rivaled Rin's. Her salvage empire had given them the wisp, but her presence was a calculated risk. She thrived in gray zones, and her loyalty was tied to survival. Valthar 3, a death trap, she said, her gravelly voice cutting through the tension. I've run salvage ops in that sector, radiation storms, pirate nests, and now corporate mercs. My crew can get you close, but we need a plan that doesn't end with us as slag. She glanced at Rin, a smirk playing on her lips. You owe me big for this, Calder. Welding my yard's defenses didn't cover a suicide run. Rin met her smirk with a nod, his welder's pragmatism kicking in. We're not dying today, Jessa. We hit Valthar 3, destroy the labs, and broadcast the Architect's operation to the Confederacy. End this before it spreads. He turned to Kalia, his hand brushing hers, a silent vow. Their bond, forged in Vexar 9 fires, tempered through Nithra's chaos and solidified on Coruscant 7, was a fusion stronger than Durasteel. Her touch, cool and grounding, steadied him against the storm ahead. The plan coalesced over days of preparation, the dome a hive of activity. Tira upgraded the WISP stealth systems, weaving in cloaking algorithms to evade Valthar 3 orbital cannons. Kalia worked with Luma, decoding its neural signals to develop a counter-frequency that could disable weaponized spores, a breakthrough that eased her ethical burden, preserving life while neutralizing threats. Rin reinforced the freighter's hull, welding additional plating to withstand radiation storms, his plasma cutters arc a steady rhythm that echoed his focus. Vren, despite his fragility, provided intel on corporate security protocols, sketching layouts of Helix's labs from memory. Jess's crew, a motley band of salvagers and ex-mercs trained for combat, their loyalty secured by promises of a share in any salvage tech. The journey to Valthar 3 was fraught with peril. The Veil's radiation storms battered the Wisp, forcing Rin to weld breaches mid-flight, his suit tethered to the hull as plasma arcs danced in the void. Kalia's voice through comms was his anchor, guiding him through the chaos. Steady, Rin, just like fusing a scaffold. He grinned, sparks flying. Scaffolds don't try to fry you. Tira's piloting dodged pirate ambushes, her drone hacking their comms to sow confusion. But Shade, the relentless bounty hunter, trailed them, their cloaked ship a ghost in the sensors. A tense skirmish in an asteroid field saw Rin welding a decoy drone to draw Shade's fire, buying time for their escape. Valthar 3 loomed, a barren ash-gray rock shrouded in a haze of radiation, its surface scarred by automated mining rigs long abandoned. The underground labs, buried beneath a fortified citadel, pulsed with activity, their energy signatures betraying their purpose. The Wisp landed in a concealed crater, its stealth plating masking their approach. Disguised as maintenance workers, Kalia's blue skin masked, Rin's tools hidden, Tira posing as a tech. Tira hacked the outer defenses, disabling sentries. Rin welded a service tunnel open, his cutter silent under suppressors, while Kalia deployed Luma's microspores to jam sensors. Inside, the labs were a nightmare of sterile corridors and glowing vats, where weaponized spores churned under artificial light. The architect's presence was felt, hollow messages directing operations, their voice distorted but commanding. A trap sprung, automated turrets and helix mercs ambushed them. The battle was brutal, lasers scorching walls, Rin welding barriers, Tira's drone shorting droids. Kalia used Luma's frequencies to disable spore vats, her heart torn by the destruction of life, even weaponized. The architect revealed themselves, a towering figure in a neural exosuit, their face obscured by a hollow mask. Your insects against progress, they sneered, unleashing a spore cloud. Kalia's counter-frequencies contained it, but Shade attacked, their cybernetic arm launching EMP spikes. Rin fused Shade's implants, Tira hacked their systems, and Jess's crew provided cover. Vren, redeeming himself, sabotaged the lab's core, triggering a meltdown. They escaped as the Citadel collapsed, broadcasting the architect's data galaxy-wide. Safe on the Wisp, Kalia and Rin's love deepened, their bond a weld against the stars. Tira, now family, plotted their next move, dismantle the consortium's core. The galaxy awaited, their saga unending.